Hey, everybody. Welcome back to a Thursday virtual happy hour. I'm your host, Greg Avola, founder of Untapped. I'm so excited that you guys are here today. We've got a great show lined up today. Hope you have your beer ready because we'll be checking those in on Untapped Home. But I'm going to bring up my two guests today, Matt and Josh from Threes Brewing Company. Matt and Josh, thanks so much for being a part of the show.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Indeed.
Awesome. So we were talking about Threes Brewing today. Matt is one of the brewers over there, and Josh is one of the co-founders. So we're going to talk all things about Threes Brewing if you haven't heard from them in Brooklyn, New York. Before we get into that and all the great stuff about it, it's all about drinking because that's what virtual happy hours are all about. If we can't be there in person, let's do it over virtually. So let's start with you, Matt. What do you have on tap for your drinking for this particular session?
I am drinking a beer that we're releasing tomorrow, actually. It is People Power Pilsner.
Nice.
We'll get into the People Power campaign that we kind of organized, but it is a dry hop Pilsner, fresh, super excited to release it and get it out there for a number of reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll talk about that as well. Josh, what do you have on your side that you're drinking this evening?
I have also got a lager beer. I've got which is our newest 10 Plato Czech Pils. That's quite tasty on this hot evening. Nice.
Well, I'll go to the beer can here and be fancy about it. I'm actually having a Kicking and Screaming, which is I haven't had this one before. It's their German Pilsner, I believe. So I'm excited. We're all having like Pilsners and lagers tonight. So that's fantastic. I love it. But out there, if you got your beer ready, crack it open and pour it into your glass or drink it out of the can if you'd like. And remember, you're checking your beer on Untapped and make sure you tag Untapped at home, which is a great way to let everyone know you're safe out there and drinking at home, for lack of better words. So I didn't mess up the pour today, and that's really good. So raise your glass, everybody. Cheers. Thanks for joining the show, Matt and Josh, and everyone enjoy your beverage. Delicious. That's really good. I've been getting a lot into pilsners and lagers recently. I mean, I'm a huge IPA fan, but it's so refreshing sometimes to have something completely different and back to the original styles of brewing, for lack of better words. So this is great, guys. Awesome. So let's kick it off. We'll start off with you, Josh, a little bit about your background with Threes, how it all started, and then we'll go over to you, Matt, about your background as well.
Sure. So as you mentioned, I'm one of the co-founders at Threes. I guess officially this is a midlife crisis project for me. I was a tech startup dude for about 20 years before starting Threes, and kind of wanted to do a manufacturing company, and two, have a space in the community I lived in, and beer felt like a great intersection of those two things. And 7 years later or so, we're up and running, or at least mostly up and running during this weird time.
Awesome. I know it's definitely been a crazy time with COVID, and we'll get into all that stuff in a little bit. But Matt, give us a little bit of your background on what you do at Threes.
I am the head brewer. Not a midlife crisis project. I've been brewing for 10 years professionally, a little bit longer. Not professionally. And frankly, I started off as a home brewer and got a couple jobs that were kind of fun to do at 20 or 19 years old. And, now it's a career. So it's, who knows where it'll be in 10 years from now. These 10 years have been a lot. I've worked at 4 breweries. I started off at Captain Lawrence for a stint and then went to Jolly Pumpkin, and then back to Captain Lawrence, and then Peekskill Brewery, and then Threes. So 4 breweries over the course of 5 different times. So good amount of varied experience, but it's been good. I mean, it's running a brewery is an interesting job. Very different than what I did in the beginning, which was packaging and brewing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, obviously your time at all these breweries obviously helped you significantly when it comes to threes, but I don't think anyone can really prepare for what's been happening in the world over the last 3.5 months with COVID. It's been pretty crazy. But before we get into all of that, for people that don't know a little about threes out there, I wanted to talk a little bit about you guys as a brewery and what you're known for. And we'll talk a little bit about you guys having the proliferation of the craft lager as a category. Can you talk a little bit about how Threes, what it's known for, and a little bit about how Threes kind of markets itself from a beer perspective? And either Josh or Matt can take this question, whatever you guys think is good.
Josh, you want
to? Sure. So, I guess at a high level, our focus is really to take classic styles and do a modern take on them. And Matt's the head brewer, so he can certainly opine on the methods and techniques by which he does that, he and his team. But the gist is we take kind of three broad pillars of hoppy American ales, lager beer, mixed culture, and then we have a few outliers. We do a couple of dark beers every year, usually in the winter time. We do a bunch of kind of interesting things with fruit beers, that kind of fit the mixed culture category. But really, we try to make beers that are kind of balance that line of super easy to drink, really accessible, but really nuanced. So, and I think our reputation is like, if, kind of as a beer drinker's brewery. So if you're the kind of person who wants to stick your nose in and capture the notes, like our beers are interesting and that's there. If you're the kind of person that just wants to take one of these and crush it at the beach, we're pretty good at that too.
Awesome. Yeah, I think it's very unique, and I've always been impressed with the stuff that you've been able to put out there. Specifically, you talked a little bit about how you add a lot of fruit to your beers and stuff as an emerging trend. When did that was that from the very beginning of Threes of adding fruit and keeping that pillar there, or was that when you found out later on as you kind of brewed through your process?
It was early. Matt, you want to talk about terroir?
Yeah, I mean, it's we're not doing anything super unusual there. We're just we're taking the mixed culture thing, which has been done for a long time in Belgium, and from great breweries who I grew up like nerding out over, like the Allagashes and Russian River and a number of just incredible breweries who borrowed that Belgian tradition. And for me, in terms of like kind of my and the other brewers at Threes, because it is like always a group effort. It's just to try to take those characteristics of fruit, which can vary so much depending on where it's grown, and get some cool like re-fermentation character. So it's just an extension of our culture is the way that I think about it. Which it's rather than just like jamming fruit into something. It's like we're going to take fruit, which is it's a food source. And have the yeast eat it and see what happens. And it always gets drier and changes. And wine is a fruit beverage. It's
absolutely
so just an extension, adding other ingredients to beer.
Awesome. Well, in case you just joined us today, we're talking with Matt and Josh of Threes Brewing in Brooklyn, New York. If you have a question for Matt or Josh, let us know in the comment on your platform. Just try to comment in there, and our team will take a look at it. And we'll put these guys in the hot seats because that's what we want to do tonight. We want to make them answer hard questions and laugh about it too. So one of the things that you mentioned early on, Matt, about the beer you're drinking is the People Power Initiative. Can you talk a little bit about why this beer is made and what your overall goal is for this?
Yeah, for sure. I would actually love to pass that to Josh. I could talk about it, but he really is the, he spearheaded it and put a lot of, sweat behind it. So
sure.
I just think this is like better for him to explain.
Go ahead, Josh. The floor is yours.
Pass. I think Matt's being modest. It's definitely kind of like our beer making process. Most of what we do at Threes is very much a team effort. I guess the People Power Initiative goes back to 2018. We had done a kind of cause beer with or in support of the ACLU. We did a beer called Courage My Love going back to 2017. We released it actually the day Donald Trump got inaugurated. Tensions were high. The Muslim ban was new. People didn't know what to do. And, we wound up establishing a relationship with some folks over at the ACLU, and we're utterly inspired by their work. And fast forward to 2018, we had read that they put together It's ACLU's famously, a 100-year-old organization, famously was not ground up in what they did. They didn't accept volunteers, and they started a platform because there was so much interest in civic duty that they started a platform called People Power, which is peoplepower.org to learn more. And I signed up, and it was interesting. You know, I live in Brooklyn, and I get texts, you know, saying, "Hey, we're meeting up in Cadman Plaza to, you know, protest something." And I checked out a bunch of these things, and they were super interesting. And so I was always enthralled by the idea of the internet and the ability to self-organize. And we said, you know, let's make a beer. And in fact, let's call on some of our fellow brewers to do the same, kind of in the spirit of people power. And you know, we wound up, you know, putting a word out to some friends, and it was like 85 breweries across 30 something states. And we all released the beer and donated 10% of the proceeds to the ACLU. It was a really cool thing.
That's
and
awesome.
then this year, it was going to be a really big deal. We hope it still is. COVID set us back a little bit. We had planned on, you know, starting this process and releasing the beer, you know, around July 4th is the idea. And kind of the symbolic bookends are July 4th, Independence Day, and Election Day, which we think are not by accident. And, you know, we're at a particularly interesting time in our country's history that, you know, we felt really strongly about this 5 months ago. You know, obviously we had no idea how world events would change and create this watershed moment in our country's history. So, you know, at this stage, you know, with the deaths of, you know, Ahmaud Arbery and George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and all the, you know, the zeitgeist right now, there's been kind of this, you know, massive boost in activism across the country. And, you know, for us, we think it's revelatory and really shining a light and a glimmer of hope in what's clearly an unjust society. And I think it's incumbent upon us in a category that is particularly homogenous. And, you know, as we have 3 white men sitting around talking about it, you know, we think it's incumbent upon us to get behind this organization that's fought for our liberty for every American, regardless of race or gender or sexual orientation or otherwise. So, you know, the particular pledge is, you know, if breweries are interested, go to peoplepower.beer, sign up. All you're doing is agreeing to make a beer and donate 10% of the proceeds to the ACLU. And the beer could be whatever you want it to be. The label can be whatever you want it to be. We think that that's important because we want people to express themselves in different ways, just like humans do. So that I can go on and on. I know we don't have much time. So that's the idea.
Yeah, it sounds very similar to the All Together badge that your fellow New York brewery other half did as well. But it's great to see people coming together for something of a good cause like that in the beer world. You know, we've talked about this numerous times on the show about how, you know, the diversity in the beer world needs to change. And that's not just in the beer world, but that's pretty much in almost anything as well. So it's pretty cool that you guys are coming together to do this in a great way. So if you're out there and you're interested in your brewery, check out peoplepower.beer and you'll be able to kind of check that information out of what they're doing. So great job with all that stuff, Josh and Matt, and putting it together, and looking forward to seeing that in the wild as it gets released and all the good things from it.
Thanks, Greg. We're actually this beer, Matt's drinking it right now. Is particularly good. It's a dry. It's
not biased in any way, shape, or form, but I appreciate that.
I want to try all of the People Power beers. That's
there you go, right? Awesome. Well, let's turn over some of the questions from the audience right now. Rick Willis had asked, Matt, what are your hobbies and passions away from brewing?
I make a lot of bread and have been doing that for years. And actually, you know, it's definitely connected. But a lot of the sourdough kind of baking that I've done for years has informed our beer program and trying to coax out like kind of living flavors. So like our, you know, a bunch of our beers use New York State kind of heritage wheats and have these kind of sour flavors, but it's not sour, but it's you can taste that it's alive. You know, they have a little crunch to them. So that, you know, outdoor stuff, hiking, climbing, things like that. But baking is the one I could probably talk your ear off more about than beer.
Well, it seemed like when this pandemic first started, everyone was baking bread. I remember going to the grocery store, and early on, you could not buy a bag of flour anywhere. So it sounds like you got it nailed down from that perspective there.
Yeah.
Let's go to another question from Tech Photo Guy. It's probably a good question here for people that don't know a little about Threes, but where exactly does Threes distribute in terms of the beers that are being sent? Is it only New York City, only New York State? How far do you guys go from the distributors?
We're distributing all throughout New York State, and then we do little drops of beer fairly consistently to Pennsylvania, to New Jersey, to Connecticut, to Massachusetts, and a little bit to Virginia. So we cast a fairly wide net. It is weird being a city brewery, and sure, Buffalo is still New York State, but New Jersey, Philly, and Connecticut are closer. So we do try to extend to kind of this like regional network. Yeah, so that hopefully you find it out there. And we're pretty small, so we don't make too much.
Yeah, and if you obviously are in New York State, you guys have an e-commerce platform too that people can purchase beer for and have it shipped directly to them, which is kind of unique. I know, Josh, you and I have spoken about this a few times over the phone. So how does this work? How did you guys decide to go into this area? Obviously, COVID kind of pushed that realm, but what's different about the way you guys set up than most other people?
I candidly, I'm not entirely sure what a lot of people are doing. We have our small cohort in New York.
Right.
So I'll first say that we did some online beer sales going back about 3 years. We did, first time we ever did a release, we had a pretty long line, which was the thing at the time. And I remember our general manager looked at us and was like, "Really, guys, you're going to screw up my service here every weekend? Is this the new thing?" And we said, that we don't have to. This sounds like a really easy tech problem to solve. We'll just, do kind of like a will call setup. And we did that, and it lasted for a little while. Candidly, I think we didn't have the right product for that market because it was not about, like, we don't make beers that are hype beers. Like, that's just not our style. Again, we're making these really accessible styles that are just very well done. So for us, we knew at the time that a better model would be, let's just sell all of our beer online. And we had geared up to do that this summer, and we were talking about it. We didn't expect the world to just start doing it around us, and we were not ready for it. So,
Right.
We shut down our bars around the time New York shut down mid-March, and threw together what was a pretty janky e-commerce site in about 3 or 4 days. I think customers are pretty forgiving about your global pandemic version of a product release.
Right.
So the impetus, frankly, was let's hire back our front of house team who was all out of work. So, when your motivation is, people who you love and, who are out of work and hiring them back, it lights a pretty good fire. So, we threw together the site. It's at shop.threesbrewing.com. We've been banging around on it, now for about 2.5 months, and it's working really well. We've been able to hire back about 60% of our team. So folks who were formerly bartenders and servers are now packing boxes for shipping and doing deliveries and super safely. And it's kept the company alive. So certainly no complaints here.
Yeah, for sure. And we, since April, I looked at this right before this, since April 29th, we've released a different lager every week. Every week we're releasing a different IPA, and we've done multiple bottle releases. It's been fascinating to me to just be able to spread those, especially lager and bottles of mixed culture saison to people who love those styles who may not live in Brooklyn, just to get it out there. There's plenty of people out there that are into things that are other than IPAs, but and to sell our friends beers because we have guest beers on there too. So it's
awesome.
Pretty cool.
That's really cool. Well, there's another question that popped up here from Courtney Weaver, and she says, "What is your favorite bar or restaurant to drink in New York City?" And I can answer this too. I used to live in New York City, but I'll let my guests here give their first take on where their favorite spot is besides Threes. Because if you haven't been to New York before, and you haven't gone down to Brooklyn, right next to the Barclays Center, that's kind of where Threes is located. It's got an amazing backyard patio as well. So besides that one, guys, where's your favorite place to go grab a beer? I'll start with you, Matt.
Gold Star Beer Counter is right near I guess it's near Threes, but happens to be right where I live. And there's just a good vibe in there all the time. I mean, it's like people talk to each other at the bar, and it's, the bartenders are knowledgeable and friendly. It's a great place to kind of like spread, the gospel of, or the love of like all styles, and just to hang out, talk about beer. They'll usually pop bottles for most people in there. So that's my favorite spot.
What about you, Josh?
I love Gold Star as well, for what it's worth. And Matt and I live near each other, and I've met there on numerous occasions. So we love that place. I'm going to say Sonny's, which is not even remotely a beer bar, though. Justin, my co-founder, made sure that they carried Logical Conclusion, our IPA, which was kind of a coup for us. It's a historic bar. It's been there over 100 years. You couldn't make this place up. It's magnificent. They have incredible music in their famous back room. Just a really great spot down on the waterfront. It feels like you step into time warp.
Awesome. I would probably say on my side, my favorite place when I lived in New York City is a place called the Pony Bar on the Upper East Side, on 25th and First. Love that place there. When I moved to New York, that was one of the first spots that I had been to. But there's a lot of great beer bars in the city, so it's kind of like I feel like I'm making everyone kind of upset by not saying their own one out there. But there's a lot of great spaces. And when this COVID thing is over, there's a ton of great opportunities. You're visiting New York to kind of grab a local beer at a local bar. I mean, there's DBA in the Village. There's amazing stuff in there that are great places. So a lot of good stuff in there.
It's true. And like, just quickly about the proliferation of lager beer, like there's a reason why we're able to do what we do at Threes. I wouldn't choose to do this portfolio if we lived in the Midwest. Our brand is heavily lager focused, and we can do that because there's just so many bars, and it's just a great place to drink pints.
Absolutely,
it's unique that way.
So we got another question here from Cindy Chen, and she's asking really about your process on how you name your beers. Obviously, I'm drinking a Kicking and Screaming right now, which is a very interesting name. How does that all come together? Is that designed before the beer is brewed, or is that something where the beer is brewed and then the name comes from there?
I think collectively, I think we've read too much heavy shit through the years, and we have a lot of conversations, and oftentimes the beer names are born out of the conversations. So like, Matt and I'll sit in a room for hours and talk about something, and sometimes one of us will look at the other and we're like, oh yeah, remember, go back to the conversation in a minute, but write that down. That's a good one. And it's kind of a rolling discussion that's been going on for years. A lot of our names tend to have a healthy dose of self-deprecation, particularly our IPAs. For a little while, we were pegged as the brewery that hates IPA, which we thought was hilarious because like half of our beers are IPA or pale ale. And we wouldn't make something we didn't want to drink. I think if we're poking fun at anything, it's people's fixation on the style. The next beer, for example, that I had was I Hate Myself, which I was about to tee up. So, we do a lot of things. It's tongue in cheek. That some of our names are a little heavier, some are really light. They're all introspective. The joke's always on us and no one else.
Yeah, I mean, I think, in this day and age, beer names are the topic of a lot of different things that people kind of ask, specifically when it comes to things like, how do they come about? Did you guys know what you guys were going to make before you named it this way? And, I think that you guys are really true to your branding with all your names of your beers out there to make it pretty interesting. I thoroughly enjoy it. It's nice to have a difference within the beer world when you're talking about branding and beer names. So, if it works for you guys, it works for you guys. That's the best way I can put it from that perspective.
We don't know if it does. I would be remiss if I didn't mention a company called Yard, who designs all of our labels, who just does an amazing job there. Yeah. They're kind of our spirit. And like, we'll send them this little blurb and they come back usually with 3 or 4 choices. And oftentimes we can't choose. So sometimes the artwork inspires the next beer name. We'll say, we wanted all of these, and now we just need to retrofit a name to this. Almost never does the beer name literally mean what the beer is. And I think that's an important distinction.
Yeah. Well, let's go into our new segment of the show, the lightning round here. So I got a list of 6 questions that I'm going to alternate between you, Josh, and Matt. And you've got 30 seconds to answer them. There's no real clock here, but pretend like there is. So it'll be fun and engaging. So, Matt, I'll start with you. What is your favorite beer when mowing the lawn?
Inner Tube from Burial is like one of those beers that, like, well, I'm sitting on a fire escape or something. We don't have lawns here, Greg.
You don't have lawns. That's a bad question.
But yeah, it's like a beer that I want to, it's from Burial. I want to drink it really fast, have it as cold as possible, and crush the can on my head. I'm not like that, but there's something about it that's just so refreshing and fun to drink. And they're making a lot of it now. So if people are down south, I hope you get to have some. I think it's an awesome beer.
Awesome. Here's a question for you, Josh. If you were a beer, what would you be?
I would be a grisette because my coworkers know how to classify me.
I like it. All right, Matt, now on to you. What's your favorite beer from a brewery that isn't yours besides the one that you just mentioned?
My favorite beer of all time is fortunately it's a place I worked, and it's Bambeer from Jolly Pumpkin. It's this kind of unsung hero of the industry, beer, and usually when I mention it to a brewer, they're like, "Oh yeah, obviously," but I haven't had it in a few years because it's hard to find. They're canning it now, but it's kind of picture perfect, simple farmhouse ale, refreshing. It kind of hits on all sides.
Awesome. All right, Josh, on to you. Favorite city to visit outside of your hometown of Brooklyn?
New Orleans.
New Orleans for the food, for the beer? What's the reason? For all of the above?
The culture, all of it.
The debauchery.
Very good. And finally, last one for you, Matt. Favorite in-person festival you've ever been to?
Beer festival?
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's kind of a sad question because they're not really happening now. But yeah,
Let's think about the good old days.
Unsurprisingly, Pills and Love up at Oxbow or Firestone Walker, but Oxbow right on the waterfront, hanging out with a bunch of brewers, drinking Pilsner, and finding that they're all pretty damn different. You go down the line, and it's a complex, interesting style. It's not just one thing. So. Cool. Pills and Love from Oxbow, keeping the dream alive.
There you go. Well, thanks you guys for answering those questions there, on the spot questions. You did great. Want to talk a little bit one thing before we close up here on beer and technology. Obviously, Josh, you had told me before you've been in technology for a very long time here. One of the things we see a lot with COVID-19 is a lot of brewers are not that into technology to kind of push their business forward. Obviously, you guys have been on the forefront of that with your e-commerce site that you're kind of really pushing for and doing the people power beer that's more technology oriented. What's your thoughts on the brewing industry and technology as a whole? Is this going to continue in post-COVID where it's going to be like almost a mandated thing, or is something you think that is not that important from a brewer perspective?
I'll disclaim this saying that, I started in the beer industry and was shocked at how behind it was in technology relative to every other industry that I was aware of. Mm-hmm. I would be utterly shocked if, and we've been debating this internally. I think consumer behavior is shifting maybe permanently. E-commerce was a big thing. It's also grown more in the last 3 months than it has in the last 10 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Get used to buying beer online. For us initially, our hope was, launching this e-commerce channel was going to get us to the other side of COVID, whenever that is. And we're still hopeful that's the case. At this stage, if it does, we believe that it won't be just as a bridge, but also be connective tissue in everything we do for the foreseeable future. We're hopeful of that.
Yeah, I think it's pretty interesting on that aspect of just your first comment. Most of the stuff that we've seen, obviously Untapped is turning 10 years old this year, which we talked earlier about this. Like, that's ridiculous in itself from a social app to last that long. But at the same time, when we first started, we had the same kind of reality that, a lot of breweries are not as technically advanced as we thought they might be in the area. I think that, sometimes a moment happens or an event happens that forces you to kind of think differently. And while how bad COVID is for the world, I think a lot of brewers trying to innovate and use technology in interesting ways to get their product in the hands of people much faster. I think that's changing laws too. I know, where I'm in Connecticut, they are allowed now brewers to ship direct to consumer in the state of Connecticut. And a lot of laws are changing now all over the place. So it's going to be interesting to see how those laws that are changed because of COVID can lend to technology to kind of produce a different world. And, on your side, Matt, from sitting from the brewer's perspective, obviously you want beer in people's hands as easily as they can, like they can with other types of alcohol out there. Obviously, there's got to be a benefit on your side when you see this stuff happen and be positive from that side.
Yeah, for sure. I have a kind of a weird relationship with this, with technology and beer and seeing all the, the heavy marketing that goes around it. And I'm kind of grateful that that's not my job because it's not something I'm interested in. And, on the plus side of it, besides seeing like the hazy IPA Boss Pours, I do like that, like we just released a 3.9% 10 Plato Czech Pils and, people bought it fast. And I think that they know about it now because they know about that style because of technology. There's just like the way that information spreads and has brought to life some of these kind of more fringe things or lower ABV beers, or, I think it's really been kind of great to see. And I'd be hard pressed to see how that would happen if we were all just kind of in our little tight bubbles. So mostly just around the kind of the democratization of beer, just like it kind of just spreads as it's not just one thing. So everybody can kind of find their niche because a lot of people have different interests and different tastes out there. So I think technology is like the conduit for that. It's so.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, it's a good point. Like you mentioned, it allows people to find out about different beers and get from point A to point B.
We had a joke internally about Untapped, is that like, we'd see our pills would always be rated kind of like a bottle cap lower than the IPA. And we would see so often people say it's good for a pills. And, that was just like a running joke in house. It's like, okay, well, pills, I guess the best is 4. Because people just don't like pills, but now people are like, pills is the new thing or whatever, like however those trends change. But it's, you can tell like on Untapped, like Pilsners are rated a little bit differently than they used to be. And the trends change.
Yeah, we always see on Untapped, like the higher the ABV, the higher the rating, the more complex flavors, obviously, the more it will actually, affect the rating from that perspective. But I agree with you, Matt. I think that the Pilsners and the lagers are something people are coming back to more and more now. And our data even shows that as well. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to sit here and tell you I don't like New England IPAs because then I'd be a liar, and I'm not going to do that. I enjoy them. But I think that Pilsners are such a hard beer to make from a brewer perspective. We've heard that time and time again. And to make one right, it just tastes amazing. So crisp, refreshing, a great beer. I think it's lost sometimes. Like you don't have to pack it with so many hops or dry hop it to have that amazing appeal. You can get a 5-star Pilsner easy. Yeah. And I think that's interesting.
We approach pretty much all beers, very similarly. And that is like, they should all be kind of layered. So whether you're making like a Pilsner or making like a mixed culture beer that sits for 2 years or making an IPA, it's about like, how do you like combine those layers and then not have it really be obvious that that's what we're doing? So you shouldn't taste like a stout with peanut butter with chocolate. It should all kind of be integrated, and Pilsner is just it's a fun place to experiment with subtle layering. It's I guess that's as nerdy as I'll get with you. My joy of this stuff.
Awesome. Well, yep. I want to thank you both, Matt and Josh, for hanging with me tonight, drinking some good beer, talking about all things Pilsner and lagers, for lack of a better word here. So really appreciate it. It's been awesome to hear about Threes, and hopefully if you know people out there listening about Threes as well, when all this kind of unfolds from a COVID perspective, to visit them in Brooklyn. But I want to give you guys one last chance to give a shout out, or where people can find you on the internet in terms of your beer and where they can kind of find it and buy it if they're in the New York State.
Shop.Threes Brewing. That's ThreesBrewing.com. or social media, Threes Brewing.
And we
Thanks,
also we have a second bar. So we have the main space where we make the beer and have a pretty big bar and backyard in Gowanus, Brooklyn, South Brooklyn. And then we have the other bar up in Greenpoint. So if anybody's in Northern Brooklyn or Queens, that's a great outpost. Always has our beer. Go pick it up, or just have it delivered. Whatever.
And a seasonal business in Governor's Island that we still hope is going to open this summer.
I had no idea you guys are going to Governor's Island, like a pop-up kind of thing.
It's a shipping container, and we did it for the first
last
awesome. Summer. It was glorious, like really great place to work, great place to visit. Kind of a hidden gem in New York City.
Yeah, I've been there many times.
We are hearing that they're going to open, so
cool.
And it's safe, so we'll see.
Awesome. Well, Josh, Matt, thank you so much. Really appreciate it, and cheers, guys. Appreciate it.
Cheers. Thanks, Greg.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for watching tonight. I wanted to give you guys a quick update of what's happening on Untapped TV. On Saturday, we're going to be talking to Sean Lawson from Lawson Liquids, Finance Liquids. That's going to be an awesome conversation. We got great beers coming up. Their Little Sip of Sunshine is just hitting the shelves real too soon. So a lot of great things to talk about there. And then following week on Tuesday, another special Tuesday, I'm talking to a good friend of mine, Bob Olson from Bolero Snort Brewing Company out of New Jersey. They make a lot of crazy beers, Fruity Pebbles, you name it. Everything goes into the boil, and you were going to talk to him about all of his brewing process there. Then we'll be off for a little while for the holiday, but we'll be back the following week with more shows. So check out untap.tv for all the scheduling updates and subscribe to be able to see what's coming up next and get alerted when we go live. If you wanted to actually listen to the podcast of these shows, you can do that. So go to any podcast provider, Apple, Google, you name it. You can download the Untapped TV episodes and watch them directly on your phone. And you won't have to see my ugly mug every single time that you watch the show here. So that'll be a good thing from that perspective. But thank you so much for watching. We appreciate it. Stay safe out there. And we'll see you next time on Saturday for a chat with Sean Lawson. Cheers, everybody.